Hello, and welcome back to the Engine Room podcast. My name is Frederik Soby, and I'm your host. Today, I'm here with our CEO and founder at SparkForce, Casper.
Yo.
And today we'll be talking about Casper. So now you have product market fit and go-to-market fit. Mm-hmm. What do you do then?
The dream, right?
The dream, yeah.
This is the dream. So this is what everybody really wants, right? Like I think the important part is to understand that every company we ever talk to, if they claim to have both product market fit go-to-market fit and actually have it, that's where you want to be. I think we probably should take a step back and just be like, why are we talking about this and why is it important? So yes. I think product market fit, the way I typically understand it and describe it, which is also, one of those things that's a little bit up in the air.
There's a lot of definitions on what is product market fit,
right?
Yeah.
Like everybody has a distinctive definition for their product market fit. I just view product market fit in very simple terms. People use and love your product. They keep coming back. It's repeated usage of your product. Whether that is like a small product that costs $1 a month or something, doesn't really matter. People keep coming back. And you don't have product market fit if you launched a trial and then everybody signed up for your trial and then never used it again.
Or that you have your whole wait list that are ready to committed to use it, right?
No, that's not product market fit. And most companies think they have product market fit if they have the first client or two, right? Yeah. That's not really the case. So that's how I see product market fit in very simple terms. I know you can spread it out a lot, but that's essentially how I see it. And then go-to-market fit are essentially when your unit economics starts working. All right. And that means that when you have proven a scalable way to attract new business, new customers or users. And that can either be, it can be inbound, outbound, it can be a specific channel that's working for you. Doesn't really matter. It's just a way where you put you put less money into the machine than what you get out of it.
All right.
That's when you have go-to-market fit.
Okay. So two very good definitions, right?
Yes.
Product market fit, somebody pays and stays, right?
Yes.
And it's not just landing the clients, also them having them to, renew the contract, basically, right? And then you say go-to-market fit, it's about unit economics.
Yes.
So just take a step back and try to define this word, unit economics, and what metrics do you look at when you're looking at the unit economics? Because there's a lot going around there. There's the LTV to CAC. That's one way to look at it, right?
Yeah. And that would be one of them. Okay. Like CAC payback, LTV, CAC. And I think those are the ones you'll look at. Okay. Like that would historically be what I would look at least. Now, it's not always that easy because sometimes, I have long sales cycles and stuff like that, but that's historically what I would look like. If you have a positive relation between those, then you're onto something. I think an important part to mention also about this topic is that the distinction between the two is quite new. Like maybe it's the classic marketeer thing. Maybe we're reinventing the wheel here, but maybe we're not. What do you call it? Say old wine in new bottles. Yeah. But I think at the end of the day, it's just about saying, historically, a lot of companies, when they identified, we suddenly have users, we got product market fit, that's when they got all their funding.
Yes.
They got all their investment when they had product market fit, and then they were set to actually go out and define and figure out go-to-market fit. And I think a lot of from just 5 years ago, or even longer to some extent, it was all about that, right? There was like a lot of free capital floating around, so it was affordable. The problem is now that if you do the same case today, where you go out and you invest in companies that have product market fit but haven't achieved go-to-market fit yet, you can't afford that. You run out of runway way too fast. Yeah. So there's I've seen more VCs start to talk about this, and I've seen more founders start to realize that these are not the same. And I think that's a really important.
It is a really important point, and I would agree with you. It's also what I've been seeing in the past couple of years here, that now there's this distinction where they have been referred to as the same thing for a long time.
Yeah.
And as you say, you would get all the VC funding on maybe even a quite fragile product market fit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then you start pouring money, headcount, tech, and media spend into something that you have no way of saying, okay, here's a sustainable way to acquire customers.
Right? Yeah, exactly. That's a problem. Yeah. That's a big, big problem.
But for this podcast,
yes,
we won't be talking about that. We'll be talking about now you have product market fit and go-to-market fit.
Yes.
What's the next step? So one of the things that I wanted to get your take on is initially you said it could either be inbound, outbound, or a channel, or so you can. Is it a right way to look at it and say, okay, we have product market fit, and now we've made LinkedIn work as a sustainable way to acquire customers. Would you then that will go into the bucket of go-to-market fit?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Okay.
There's dependencies, but yeah,
Sure.
overall, in general, I would say so.
Right.
Yes.
And then let's say that's the case. So what are we going to do about that? What are we going to do with that information that now we have a LinkedIn motion that works here?
Scale it. I think it's a very simple question and also a very sophisticated one. I think the important part is first when you figure out what works, and that could be down to a channel level, it can also be a little bit higher level, it can also be like a motion, right? Like it can also be like, hey, I've discovered ABM as a motion, that's not just one channel typically, works, right? Then you scale that program, let's call it that. But I think the important part is this, once you found it, then you figure out what you need to figure out next is how hard can you go on that program, right? And whatever that's a program, a motion, or a single tactic, doesn't really matter too much. The question is this, what you need to analyze and figure out is how hard can you go? Because that's also what your investors are going to ask you, right? So you're going to ask you, okay, if we give you 100 million, how much are you going to get out of it, right? Now, so that's the thing, and what people typically forget in this phase is that there's a natural glass ceiling. It's always like, it can be typically what I find is that it's hard to get started, like it's hard to find the first traction, then the next traction is very easy. Like that's actually the easiest part of the journey. And then the hardest traction, like not the hardest, maybe that's wrong, but then it becomes hard again. Because then you reach a glass ceiling. And I think the perfect example of this is typically when you do paid search. Because I always use the example of saying, like, let's say you start out with a whole new product, you have product market fit, and now you're trying to find go-to-market fit. So you go out and search the market for people who are looking for your product right now, high intent searches, right? So people who are looking for X software solution for my company. Let's just say that, I'm just simplifying. Sure. There's one person who searches for that the entire year or month or whatever. Now you spend your first $100 and you acquired this guy and he makes you back $1,000. Boom, go-to-market fit. The problem is just, you can't really scale that one guy, like, because there's not going to be more just because you put money into it. And I think that's so. There's also some dependencies on what that motion and tactic has as of a glass ceiling. So in this case, there's a natural ceiling, and like, even though we put more money into paid search as an example here, that won't increase actually our output like that much. Of course, I'm simplifying a lot. There's typically room, but at a theoretical example, as an example here, then there's a natural ceiling for how hard you can push this.
All right, that's actually a super interesting point, because I do think, so it's also about, so go-to-market fit is also a matter of repeatability then,
yes,
right?
Absolutely.
Because what I'm also seeing with these tech companies is then, we have product market fit and we're acquiring customers, but everything is friends, fools, and family, or like they're network based. And like
go-to-market fit is when you have a repeated thing you can do, where they can pay something like a platform or whatever it is, or whatever, pay into a program motion, and you can get an outcome out of it, and you repeat it, and it happens multiple times.
Okay, let's take the LinkedIn example. You say you scale it as hard as you can.
Yeah.
What does that look like? How do we do that?
Pour more money into it.
Pour more money into it
until it starts breaking.
Okay.
Like it sounds. I don't think you have to overcomplicate this part.
Okay.
Like this part is just like, until you start seeing the breaks. Like especially when it comes to stuff like this, when it comes to LinkedIn, where social channels, where it's about demand generation, demand creation. Well, there's a quite high glass ceiling, right? Like there's a lot of there's new markets, there's new avenues, there's new platforms. There's a lot of room for stuff here. Yeah. So that one, I wouldn't be as worried about the glass ceiling. If you start at the bottom of your funnel with some more demand capture place, then I would be more worried about that part. Okay. But the other, I would increase it. What I think is interesting is talk about like when you start thinking about diversification. I think that's typically something I advocate a lot for, and I wish I could say I have like a golden rule, but I don't. To be completely honest, it's let's call it a little bit of a gut feeling. But my take is kind of simple, because there comes a point. Let's say you found a thing that works. Let's say you made LinkedIn works, and that seems to, when you use LinkedIn, you get more customers in, and it comes in. All good. You keep scaling that, but you're also your users and the people you are working with are not just on LinkedIn. And there comes an element at one point where you say, okay, the next dollar I will put in LinkedIn, maybe I should have spent the first dollar on Meta, or Twitter, X, or Reddit, or Quora, or wherever it is, to kind of spread out my wings a bit. That doesn't mean it's like necessarily because Reddit is going to be a better channel for me or better approach for me than, let's say, LinkedIn. But it helps you to gain, like, to the people who are exposed to your ads will see you more. It's a classic, like, an omni-channel thing, right? Like, you become more visible, and that empowers what you're already doing. So the fact that if you start investing in Reddit when you have a high spend on, let's say, LinkedIn, will actually make your LinkedIn better. And that's the thing that typically confuses people, because like, why? Because, like, imagine you're on LinkedIn, then you also switch to Reddit, and you also see the ad for the same company, and you're like, okay, cool, there's something here, right?
Then the question always becomes, then why would then I'm paying double for the same, right?
Yes.
If you can so I'm paying twice for that same impression, almost, right?
Yes.
But for influencing that person on different channels, and that's very much a mindset thing that you have to adapt as well. Right?
Yes, I think it's actually a very good point, and technically you could, like, kill your margins by doing that, but at the same time you also have to believe that by doing that you push people faster and you push more people. And I think that's the case. That's what we typically see as well.
All right. But this thing about diversification, that would typically come at a point where I'm reaching some sort of glass ceiling or, like, diminishing returns on the channel that I've chosen to work towards.
Yes.
A way that I like to approach that is to say I'm picking one of my leading indicators. So let's say that's form submissions, right?
Yeah.
That I'm happy to spend 150 euros on that, and then I'm trying to pump as much money into LinkedIn or whatever channel until I start to see that go up. And then I'm trying to scale down a little bit. So that's a very, like, tactical approach of how to do it.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, and that's when you start to feel your glass ceiling.
Okay.
And sometimes it will be very evident, and sometimes it won't. I think I have a good example without mentioning a client that operates only in the Danish market, right? And they spend quite a lot on Google Ads. And all things considered, what are we, 6 million people in Denmark or something? There's a limitation to how much you can actually spend on Google Ads, especially when it's B2B. Like, if you're selling shoes, there's a lot of people who need shoes. But when you're doing B2B software, there's a natural limitation. Like, no matter how much money they're pouring in, so that one is just like there's not going to increase in the amount of people. So I think that one's pretty evident that here there's a very natural glass ceiling. I think the harder part is defining it in paid social, in all the, like, in the demand generation activities you're doing, because here you have to. There's a lot of other metrics in place that are not, a little bit more blurred. Let's put it that way.
And that's generally the problem with something like defining go-to-market fit, right? Especially in B2B, because you have tech. Okay, how much of the fractional tech cost do I then pile into that? And it gets tricky, right?
I think it gets super tricky. And I think one of the fundamental problems that I feel like I see all the time is that, like, I almost want to say 9 out of 10 companies we talk to, or like we've talked to, is just, they can't actually define if they have go-to-market fit or not. They actually don't know. No. And most of them, of course, come to us because they don't believe they have, and that also happens to be a case. But it's just, first of all, it takes time.
Yes.
Like, it takes a lot of time. Like, we had a case where it took us 18 months to get to real, proven go-to-market fit. 18 months, that's a long time. Trust me, there's people who lose patience along the way, right? So 18 months or something, like, it takes a long time. Then you need just a pure, like, you need a nice setup. Like, I typically say, like, in order to be able to prove go-to-market fit, you need to have a clean CRM, and clean with huge quotation marks. Doesn't actually exist, but cleaner, like somewhat, like you need to cleanish, right? And when I say cleanish, I just mean you need to have your salespeople putting in their deals. They need to be attributable in some sort of sources. You need to be able to see where they're coming from. That just needs to be in place somewhat. Right? So that needs to be in place. And then you need to have some sort of self-reported attribution, like, so you can actually see what a report, like, what are you getting in? So, like, do you get it, like, and typically self-reported attribution is adding to your form, like having a form field that says, hey, how did you hear about us? So you have that. So you have a clean CRM, you have a self-reported attribution. Then your third layer is some sort of attribution tool. You can use the Dream Data, Hockey Stack, those kind of things. That's typically what I would recommend. So one of those three, right? And then at the end, like, those three are the core. There's other things like LinkedIn revenue attribution report, stuff like that helps, but those are the core 3 pieces. And then I would say on top of that, then you need to bundle it. Like, then you need to analyze it together. You need to be able to do that and either do it yourself or have someone internally. And that exercise, not a lot of companies are capable of doing that, to be honest. And once you get to that point, I would say, especially from a marketing perspective, that's when you can start talking about proving go-to-market fit.
Would you also say that you would be able to lose go-to-market fit again?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Because here's where I'm coming from. So I see, people talk about product market fit as a very fluid thing, right? Because market dynamics change and needs change. AI comes in, this whole thing, right? Would you say that like?
Actually, now the more I think about it, yeah, absolutely, right? Like totally. And I think the best examples are when a channel stops working for you, right? Like, and I think let's take. I actually think the best example right now is SEO.
Yeah.
Like take SEO, because there's so many things happening with AI on SEO. So generative engine optimization is the new thing, right? Geo. And I think that's a perfect example. There's a lot of companies that have built their entire businesses on SEO, right? So many companies. And some of them are struggling right now because the whole AI is changing the game, which brings back to the whole, this is why you need to diversify. Like you need to have a backup plan for when that channel, motion, tactic, whatever, stops working.
Yeah, and you're seeing the same thing a little bit with something like outbound, right?
Yes.
While outbound has its place, and like I'm not saying that, but it's definitely losing efficiency, right? So the companies that have been relying very heavily on something like outbound, they would also be, maybe not losing, but at least, contracting their go-to-market fit on something like that.
I think it's a classic thing in marketing. We always like to declare things dead, right?
Yes.
So I don't think outbound's ever gonna die.
No.
Like I don't think it's ever gonna not be impactful for me to sit down and just go on the phone and call somebody. That has impact. That's always gonna work to some extent. Now, the question that will become interesting when it comes to outbound is because of the AI, let's call it pollution of outbound. And when I say AI pollution, it means everything's being automated. I get like 50 emails a day that says, "Hey Casper, I know that you work at SparkForce and we also work with this XI industry." Like blah 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 blah. You can read the AI a mile away, right? So I think my point is just to say that outbound's always gonna work, but it's gonna be harder.
Yeah.
Like it's harder to make it work than it was before.
Yeah, we're at a breaking point with it right now because they're introducing AI BDRs and that whole thing, right? So,
and I think it's harder to scale than it was before.
Yeah.
Because literally, I remember, 10 years ago or something, it was literally just hire more BDRs. And people weren't used to being reached out to on LinkedIn. That wasn't actually that, like it happened, but it wasn't that normal. These days, it's different.
So it's also a matter of, from this talk that we're having now, so we say, okay, so you can get product market fit, you can attain product market fit, you can also lose it again.
Yes.
So there's also very much a matter of urgency when you feel something working, right? You want to push everything that you can into that and squeeze it for everything that it has, right?
And it's the classic, you have a catch-22 built into that. Because what's the most common thing I hear from founders, people, CEOs and stuff, and people who are buying into SparkForce, buying into marketing in general, is this phrase, "I will invest as soon as I see it working."
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a huge, weird conundrum. Because like you can't really get marketing to work before you invest in it, typically, right? So you have to flip your mindset and invest first and then get the output. And it's the kind of same like, as soon as we get money, then we'll, and as soon as we see traction, then we'll throw more money into it. But that's not always the case. And people always have to be like, but then this and this. So I think there's an element of saying like, okay, you have to have your leading indicators that indicate you have go-to-market fit. Because sometimes you can't wait 18 months to get started, right? You can't wait 18 months to actually invest. But you have to have your leading indicators in place to say, this is pointing in the right direction, this will turn into go-to-market fit. And that's enough sometimes.
All right. If we then try and get very practical again, let's say we have a case, ACVs of like, maybe small ACVs, right?
Yeah.
20,000 euros a year, something like that. What are leading indicators you would look at for go-to-market fit?
Pipeline generation overall.
So,
like, are you generating pipeline?
Okay.
If you can't see that far, which is it depends on your sales cycle and stuff, but if you can't see that far, then I would look at stuff like brand searches, direct traffic. Those are typically It's actually funny because like 10 years ago, if you told me I would be looking at direct traffic, I'd be like, fuck off.
Yeah.
Super, like what an idiot.
Yeah.
But these days I actually look at it like, and it's just, as I said, it's not my final indicator, but it's a leading indicator. It tells me if something's moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
Direct traffic is the trash can, right? Like it's whenever the platforms or Google in general can't tell us where people are coming from.
Yeah.
But people are coming to, they don't just write sparkforce.dk, right? They don't just do that, but you should.
Yeah.
But they don't just write that in your browser. They do that for a reason. Yes. They've seen us somewhere. They have a reason to do so, right? So it's not out of nowhere. That doesn't actually exist. And so if that's increasing, that means that something is pulling in the right direction. It doesn't tell you what. It's the same with brand searches. If somebody's searching for your brand and that number goes up, you're doing something right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was what I was trying to get at a little bit, because we can all agree that marketing needs to drive revenue and it needs to drive weighted pipeline, but that might take some time.
Yes.
And then how do we kind of say, because you said, okay, these are indicators that we might have some go-to-market fit.
Yes.
So that's something like
typically also you want to look at, once you get them to our website, you want to look at, are they looking at the right pages? Yes. Like, so key page views. So typically what we define that as, like, are they looking at the pricing page? So someone who's looking at the career page and someone at the pricing page. I'd rather invest money in the people who are looking at my pricing page than career page for different reasons, right? And that's just a good example of saying, okay, we're guiding the right people. These days, you can also, both with LinkedIn and with intent data and all these kind of fancy things, you can essentially also get some indication of what type of job titles, what kind of companies they're coming from. Mm-hmm. So are they ICP fits, right? Like, are they the right people? Are they coming from the right companies and so forth? Yeah. If that's the case, that's also a leading indicator that you're at least bringing the right people to the table. Then that might not mean they're signing up, but at least like, okay, we're getting the right attention.
All right. So there's part quantitative, but also very qualitative measures to this. So it's not just a matter of saying, look at all these key page views that I got, because I think I've said this a bunch of times, but you can set up, traffic from a meta ad, broad targeting with a very good offer and send them there. So there also has to be this qualitative measure to it. So it's not just saying,
exactly,
here are the numbers.
And you got to be smart about these things, right? Like, I remember once helping a client that I kind of almost refused to work for, because the only thing they wanted to measure was traffic, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, we just want traffic to the website. And just as you said, I was just like, guys, I can buy you 1 million visitors tomorrow from India. Yeah. It's not going to drive anything. It's not going to help you anywhere, right? Is that really what we want? Mm-hmm. So I think you're also, like, you're looking for the right metrics. And brand search and direct traffic, I also want to say brand searches typically take time. Yeah. Like, there's a time lag effect. Mm-hmm. The fastest I've seen is like 3 to 6 months. The normal is more like 12 to 18. So it takes time. Yeah. Direct traffic is a little bit faster, but the other things take time.
Yeah. And one thing that's worth noting, if we look at, like, let's say you have a smaller TAM and ABM motions, and then maybe in isolation, brand searches isn't a good thing, because it also has to be from the right accounts. So it's just something to consider there. All right. I think we got to the bottom of this, Casper. This was a really good episode. Thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome. Thanks, guys. Take care.